Beneath the scorching African sun that painted the vast savanna in shades of gold and amber, an epic struggle between life and death was unfolding on a remote dirt trail that cut through the heart of the wilderness. The scene before any observer would have been both mesmerizing and terrifying in its raw display of nature's most fundamental laws. An immense African rock python, one of the continent's most formidable constrictors, had successfully ambushed a zebra and was now methodically crushing the life from its victim with the patient efficiency that had made these serpents apex predators for millions of years. The python itself was a marvel of evolutionary perfection, its massive body measuring nearly 20 feet in length and weighing close to 200 pounds of pure muscle and sinew. Its scales, arranged in intricate patterns of brown, olive, and bronze, caught the harsh midday light and reflected it back in an almost hypnotic display of natural artistry. The serpent's body, thick as a grown man's torso at its widest point, had formed a series of increasingly tight coils around the zebra's midsection, each ring of muscle working in perfect coordination with the others to create an inescapable prison of flesh and bone. The zebra, a magnificent specimen of Equus quagga with the distinctive black and white stripes that served as both camouflage and identification among its kind, was fighting a battle that had been predetermined by the laws of physics and anatomy. Every labored breath it managed to draw only provided the python with the opportunity to tighten its grip further, a process that would continue until the prey animal's cardiovascular system could no longer function under the immense pressure being applied to its vital organs. The zebra's powerful legs, normally capable of carrying it at speeds exceeding 30 miles per hour across the African plains, now thrashed uselessly in the dusty earth, sending clouds of red soil into the still air, while its hooves searched desperately for purchase that might somehow provide leverage against its serpentine captor. The animal's distinctive call, which under normal circumstances would have alerted other members of its herd to potential danger, had been reduced to barely audible whimpers and gasps as the python's coils compressed its chest cavity and restricted airflow to its lungs. This dramatic confrontation between predator and prey had not occurred by chance, but rather represented the culmination of a sequence of events that had begun many hours earlier with a mother's desperate love and an instinctual drive that would ultimately lead her into mortal peril. The morning had dawned with the gentle promise of another peaceful day on the African savanna, as the first rays of sunlight illuminated a landscape that had remained virtually unchanged for countless millennia. A sizable herd of zebras, numbering perhaps 30 individuals including several mares with young foals, had been moving slowly across the grasslands in their eternal search for fresh grazing areas and reliable water sources. Among this group was a mare who had given birth only weeks earlier to a spirited foal whose wobbly legs and playful demeanor marked it as one of the newest additions to the herd's extended family structure. The social dynamics of zebra herds are complex and carefully maintained, with experienced matriarchs leading the group's movements, while stallions provide protection from predators that constantly threaten the vulnerable young. The mare had been keeping her foal close to her side throughout the morning's journey, using gentle nudges and soft vocalizations to guide its movements and ensure it remained within the safety of the group's protective formation. However, the deceptive tranquility of the African wilderness was shattered without warning when a coalition of lions, having spent hours lying motionless in the concealment of tall grass, launched a coordinated assault on the unsuspecting herd. The attack came with the explosive suddenness that characterizes all successful predatory strikes, transforming a peaceful grazing scene into a chaotic maelstrom of terror and confusion within mere seconds. The lions, led by an experienced lioness whose hunting prowess had kept her pride fed through countless dry seasons, had positioned themselves with strategic precision around the zebra herd before launching their attack. Their approach had been executed with the patient planning and flawless timing that separated successful predators from those who went hungry in the harsh African environment. As the big cats burst from their concealment with earth-shaking roars that seemed to make the very ground tremble, The zebra herd exploded into a frenzied stampede of black and white bodies, flowing across the landscape like a living river. The thunder of hooves created a cacophony that drowned out individual voices as each animal's survival instincts overrode all other considerations in the desperate race to escape the reaching claws and snapping jaws of their attackers. In the chaos and confusion of the attack, the unthinkable happened. The mare became separated from her precious foal. Despite her frantic calls and desperate attempts to locate her offspring among the swirling mass of panicked animals, the inexorable momentum of the fleeing herd carried her away from the area where she had last seen her baby. The other zebras, driven by the overwhelming imperative of immediate survival, continued their headlong flight across the savanna until the lions were left far behind and the immediate danger had passed. When the herd finally slowed and began to regroup in a safe area several miles from the attack site, the mare found herself facing every mother's worst nightmare. Her foal was nowhere to be found among the survivors. The other zebras, their own adrenaline levels still elevated from the encounter with the lions, showed little interest in returning to search for a missing youngster, when doing so would place the entire group at renewed risk. Faced with the choice between remaining with the relative safety of the herd and venturing back into dangerous territory to search for her offspring, the mare's maternal instincts overruled her own survival needs. Despite the protestations of the herd's dominant stallion, who attempted to block her departure with his own body, she broke away from the group and began the perilous journey back toward the area where the attack had occurred. The mare's solitary trek across the sun-baked landscape represented a supreme act of courage and devotion that defied every rational instinct for self-preservation. With her head low to the ground and her nostrils flared wide to catch any trace of her foal's distinctive scent, she retraced the chaotic path of the morning stampede while constantly scanning the horizon for signs of both her missing offspring and the predators who might still be hunting in the area. Her search led her along a dusty track that served as an informal boundary between different territorial ranges within the vast ecosystem of the savanna. This particular road, little more than a pair of tire tracks worn into the earth by occasional vehicles, had become a corridor frequently used by wildlife moving between seasonal grazing areas and permanent water sources. Unbeknownst to the desperate mother, this same track had been chosen as an ambush site by one of Africa's most patient and deadly predators. The African rock python that had taken up residence in a dense thicket beside the road was a mature specimen whose considerable size and hunting experience made it one of the most formidable predators in the entire ecosystem. For 3 days, this massive serpent had remained motionless in its chosen position, its body coiled among the thorny branches and dense vegetation that provided perfect camouflage for its scaled hide. The python's hunting strategy relied entirely on patience and the ability to remain absolutely still for extended periods while waiting for suitable prey to venture within striking distance. The snake's sensory capabilities were perfectly adapted for this type of ambush hunting, as it could detect the vibrations of approaching animals through specialized receptors in its jaw and body, while its forked tongue constantly sampled the air for chemical signals that would reveal the presence and identity of potential prey. The recent disturbance caused by the lion attack and the subsequent stampede had created an ideal hunting opportunity, as confused and separated animals were likely to pass through the area while searching for their lost companions. When the mare finally paused directly in front of the python's hiding place, raising her head to scan the surrounding area for any sign of her missing foal, she unknowingly presented the perfect target for the ambush predator. In that single, fatal moment of stillness, the python struck with the lightning-fast reflexes that had been honed by millions of years of evolutionary refinement. The attack was a masterpiece of predatory efficiency, as the python's massive body uncoiled from its hiding place and struck the unsuspecting zebra with tremendous force, knocking her to the ground and immediately beginning the constriction process that would determine the outcome of their deadly encounter. The mare's initial scream of terror and pain echoed across the empty landscape, but There was no member of her species within miles to hear her desperate call for help. As the python's coils tightened around her body with methodical precision, the mare's struggle became increasingly futile, her strength ebbing away with each passing minute as the massive serpent applied pressure to her vital organs. The dust kicked up by her thrashing hooves began to settle around the scene of mortal combat, creating an almost ceremonial atmosphere around what appeared to be nature's inevitable conclusion to this predator-prey encounter. Several miles away from this life and death struggle, two experienced wildlife rangers were conducting a routine patrol of their assigned sector within the vast protected area that encompassed thousands of square miles of African wilderness. Malik Ochieng, a veteran conservationist with over 15 years of experience in wildlife management, was driving the lead vehicle while maintaining radio contact with his partner Jonah Mwangi, whose specialized training in animal behavior and emergency response made him an invaluable asset to their two-man team. The Rangers' morning had been routine until the distinctive sound of the zebra's distress call cut through the static of their radio communications with an urgency that immediately captured their attention. Both men had heard countless animal vocalizations during their years of service in the African bush, but this particular sound carried the unmistakable frequency and intensity that indicated an animal in immediate mortal danger. Without the need for extended discussion, both rangers simultaneously turned their rugged Land Rover vehicles away from their planned patrol route and began racing across the rough terrain in the direction of the distress call. Their years of experience had taught them that in situations involving large predators and prey animals, the window of opportunity for successful intervention was measured in minutes rather than hours. As their vehicles crested a small rise in the landscape, the scene that unfolded before them was both spectacular and horrifying in its display of raw natural power. The enormous python, its victory seemingly assured, was methodically squeezing the life from the magnificent zebra trapped within its coils, while the prey animal's struggles grew visibly weaker with each passing moment. Malik and Jonah brought their vehicles to a stop at a safe distance from the ongoing struggle, their professional training dictating a cautious approach that would minimize the risk of accidentally making the situation worse for the trapped zebra. They quickly gathered their standard intervention equipment, which consisted primarily of long wooden poles designed for leverage and distraction, rather than weapons that might injure either animal involved in the encounter. Their approach to the python required careful coordination and extensive knowledge of snake behavior, as any sudden movements or aggressive actions could cause the serpent to tighten its coils even further or redirect its attention toward the humans attempting to interfere with its meal. Malik, whose experience with large constrictors was more extensive, positioned himself near the python's tail section with the goal of finding the end of its coiled body and beginning the extremely difficult process of unwrapping it from around the zebra. Meanwhile, Jonah focused his efforts on the python's head, using his pole to provide gentle but persistent stimulation that might break the serpent's concentration and cause it to release its grip on the zebra. However, the ancient predator remained locked in his primal focus, his small but intelligent eyes fixed on his prey, while his entire body continued the methodical process of constriction that had served its species so well throughout evolutionary history. As the Rangers' initial intervention strategy proved insufficient to break the python's hold on the zebra, whose struggles had now faded to barely perceptible movements, Jonah made a desperate decision to employ an unconventional technique that he had learned during emergency response training. Racing back to his vehicle, he retrieved a small bottle of alcohol-based hand sanitizer from his emergency medical kit, knowing that the high alcohol content could serve as a powerful irritant to the python's sensitive sensory organs. Suis no tuturasin, no suis durasin, duras quintundurasin. To the python's sensitive sensory organs. The application of the sanitizer directly in front of the python's snout created an immediate and dramatic response, as the powerful alcohol fumes overwhelmed the serpent's delicate chemical detection systems and caused it to release its grip on the zebra in an attempt to escape the irritating substance. The strategy worked perfectly, causing the confused and agitated python to retreat into the tall grass while the zebra collapsed to the ground, gasping for air, but finally free from the crushing embrace that had nearly cost it its life. The rangers immediately rushed to provide emergency medical attention to the traumatized zebra, conducting a thorough examination to determine the extent of its injuries while speaking in low, calming tones designed to reduce its stress levels and prevent it from injuring itself further in a panic response. Their professional assessment revealed extensive bruising and soft tissue damage, but no broken bones, a remarkable outcome considering the tremendous pressure that had been applied to the animal's body during its ordeal. After treating the zebra's minor wounds and administering anti-inflammatory medication to help with swelling and shock, the rangers fitted the animal with a lightweight GPS tracking collar that would allow them to monitor its movements and determine whether their intervention had been truly successful in saving its life. The collar also carried the hope that the zebra might be reunited with its missing offspring, the search for which had led to this near-fatal encounter in the first place. 2 days after the dramatic rescue, satellite tracking data revealed that the mare had indeed resumed her search for her lost foal, covering many miles of territory in her determined quest to locate her missing offspring. When the rangers deployed a surveillance drone to obtain visual confirmation of the zebra's condition, they were rewarded with footage that exceeded their most optimistic expectations. The drone's high-resolution camera captured images of the mare standing peacefully beside a small watering hole, with a young foal pressed close against her side in the universal posture of reunion and relief. The successful outcome of the mother's search validated the rangers' decision to intervene in the python attack and demonstrated once again the incredible power of maternal bonds that transcend species boundaries and defy the harsh realities of survival in the African wilderness. The story of the zebra's rescue and subsequent reunion with her offspring became a powerful symbol of hope within the conservation community, illustrating both the dedication of wildlife professionals and the remarkable resilience of the animals they work to protect. The incident also highlighted the complex ethical considerations involved in wildlife management, where human intervention must be carefully balanced against the natural processes that have shaped ecosystem dynamics for millions of years.